Hello, and welcome to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce for WordPress. My name's Rachel McCollin, and in this course I'll show you how to create a basic store on your existing website. And the site that we'll be using is an author website for my pen name, which at the moment has a shop that's just a really basic form that people fill out saying what they want. Now that's not good enough. We want a proper store with images and a cart. So during the course, we're going to install WooCommerce. I'm going to show you how to configure all the settings, and then I'll show you how to add some products. And in this case, the products will be books. So after we've done that, we'll use product categories to sort the books into series. Our front store page will look like this. So when you click through to each of these categories, you see all the books in that category, and then you can buy the book. Watch this course and find out how to add WooCommerce to your WordPress site. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. In this part of the course, I'm going to give you an overview of WooCommerce itself and show you some example stores using WooCommerce so you can get some inspiration. So here we are on the WooCommerce website, and I'm actually in my dashboard here. So once you've signed up with WooCommerce and you've got an account with them, which is free because WooCommerce itself is free, you can access any downloads that you've got via this dashboard, and you can also get support. And you can look in the forums. So here there's all sorts of information and guidance to help you improve your store. Obviously a lot of this is geared towards selling add-ons, which we'll look at later in the course. But here you'll find access to developer resources, blog guides, documentations, all sorts of other things. So this is the sort of one-stop shop for everything you need to find out about WooCommerce. In your own site, when you install WooCommerce, you'll get a dashboard. Now this is showing at the moment that I've still got a few things to do in my dashboard, and we'll be working through these during the course. And it's also worth mentioning that you can also access WooCommerce via the WordPress plugin directory, because it's a free plugin that you install via the WordPress admin screens. So let's take a look at some example stores using WooCommerce, and you'll find that WooCommerce is incredibly customizable. So all these stores look very different, work in very different ways, and have very different types of brand. So here we've got Good Dye Young, which is hair dye. So we've got video at the top of the store, we've got a shop now link, and then we've got something a bit more familiar. So we've got images, which you can hover over and see the vibrant colours. And this is all, and we've got add to cart and read more buttons. You've got the option to see more. See, there are two sections here. So there's this poser paste and lighter days. So those are probably using product categories to separate them out. So here we've got a custom design all using WooCommerce. Here's another one, very different. This is a typography company. The design here doesn't look anything like a standard WooCommerce store. I think you'd agree. And if I scroll down and I go to the fonts screen, we can access these and you can buy them using the WooCommerce plugin. But this looks nothing like the WooCommerce standard interface. You can see that they've designed it so that you've got, these might be product variations or they might be different products, I'm not sure, but using a completely custom design and layout, you can buy things using the WooCommerce system. We've now got AeroPress, a coffee press. So we've got an animation on the homepage, which is very nice. And again, it just doesn't look like a standard store. But there's more information as we go through. Now let me just scroll up, look at the menu, Shop AeroPress. So here we have all the products. In fact, no, we have cafes and buy now. Buy now is going to take us to the store. So here we have something that looks a little bit more like a standard WooCommerce page. But you can see that again, you wouldn't know this was built on a free WordPress plugin. Now, it's probably had an expensive bespoke design, it's probably got some add-ons, but again, it's all using WooCommerce. Here's another one, Ghostbed. This one, in terms of its layout and its UI, is a little bit more familiar. Again, we've got a big home page designed to tell you more about the product. But if I go into one of these options in the mega menu, we can see that what we've probably got here is a product with options and variable elements to it. So you've got variations on the product here, like the size and the mattress and so forth. So this might be set up using product variations. There might be an add-on powering this, something like the product options add-on that we'll be using later in the course. But the cart calculates it all as you go along, and this is all using WooCommerce. We've now got the All Blacks shop where you can buy All Blacks merch, and let's have a look in one of the sections. These are probably using product categories, these sections that you could see on the homepage, and here you can see we've got the individual products that you can buy and add to your cart. And then finally, Huru backpack site. Now this is like a lot of fashion sites, not at all static. Let's click on one of the products. It takes a little while to load, probably using JavaScript, and you can see that here we've got a product that you can buy. So this isn't a standard grid at all. This is a page for each product, very custom design with the image in the background and the button to add it to your cart with lots of information here. Now this may or may not be using the fields available in WooCommerce out of the box. It's probably not. It's probably got some custom code added to it or an add-on, but again, it's using WooCommerce. So this gives you an idea of the sort of highly bespoke design you can have with WooCommerce. Now in this course, we're going to be getting started, so I'm not going to show you anything as advanced as this, but what I will show you is how you can add WooCommerce to an existing website in an existing theme to add a fairly straightforward grid of products to your store. So in the next part of the course, we're going to get started doing that. I'll install the plugin and I'll show you how to get it set up. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on WooCommerce. In this part of the course, I'm going to start the process of setting up our store. So I'm going to install WooCommerce and work through the wizard to get it working. But first, let me give you a quick tour of the site I'm going to do this on. Instead of using a demo site, I'm going to use a real site. I'm going to use a site for an author, and it's actually myself as a pen name. So at the moment, this site has got a shop page, which has just got a form in it, so people can order copies of books using this form. Now, that's got me a few orders, but it's not brilliant. It's not got photos of the books. It's not got any variants of the books, so people can't choose whether to buy a paperback or an ebook or a hardback if those are available. And it probably isn't helping the sales of those books very much. So instead, I'm going to set up WooCommerce and replace this shop page with a new shop page using WooCommerce's functionality. Now, this particular site is actually part of a multi-site network, so I'm going to have to install the WooCommerce plugin on the network and then activate it for the site. So this process will be exactly the same if you're running a regular single WordPress site. You'll just install it for the site itself instead of the network. So I'm going to go to the network dashboard here and go to Plugins, Add New. And then we'll probably find WooCommerce. No, it's not there. I'm going to search for it. Here we are. So install now. Now, if you're installing this on a regular site, this install button will turn into an activate button. In my case, it's going to turn into a network activate button. So I would be activating it on every site in the network. And I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to click the activate button when it kicks in, but instead I'll go to the site itself. So you see here, it's network activate. If you're running a regular site, that'll say activate, and you can just click that button to activate WooCommerce in your site. And that'll then take you to the WooCommerce wizard automatically. But instead, I'm going to go back to my site. I'll go to Plugins, and then I'll scroll down to WooCommerce and I'll activate. So WooCommerce will activate and the wizard will start. So you've got the choice of using the wizard if you want to. You could click not right now if you're not ready and come back to the settings screens later on. But I'm going to click yes please. Now you'll find that the settings that you need to use for your store are obviously different to mine. I'm going to be setting up my store in the UK, and there will be some information that's pre-populated based on what's already in my WordPress site, and you might have to add more information if it's not been pre-populated. So I'm going to start by putting my address in. And I'm not going to give you my real address, but it's no big surprise that I live in Birmingham. I'll click continue. It doesn't like that. Click continue. And then if you want to, you can take part in usage tracking. I'll click count me in. Continue again. And then it'll start asking you some questions. So just work through the wizard, doing what the plugin tells you to do at different stages. So I'm in other. I will have physical products. I will have downloads. And I might decide to have subscriptions and memberships later on, but you need to pay for an add-on to enable that, so I'm not going to do that just yet. So I'll click continue. How many products do I plan to display? Under 100 but over 10. I'm selling on another platform because my books are also for sale on Amazon and in Waterstones and other places. My current annual revenue, I'm going to say just getting started because I'm just getting started with this store. And the platform is using, the store is using Amazon, because I'm going to include in this external products, and I'll send buyers to Amazon with affiliate links for some of my products. Now you can then choose to include Facebook, MailChimp, Google Ads. Now I'm not going to worry about Facebook or Google Ads, but I am going to include MailChimp because I want to connect my customers to my mailing list, which I run on MailChimp. I'll click continue, and you can see here the continue button is showing a graphic. So now I can choose a theme. Now here I have to select a theme. You can see there are a whole load of choices. There are free themes here, and you can find all these in the WordPress theme directory as well. So I'm going to stick with Storefront, and once I've set this up, I'll actually revert to my existing theme. Now I think this is actually a downside of the wizard because it doesn't give me the option to stick with my site's existing theme. So you've got the option to upload a theme. I don't want to upload a theme because I've already got a theme installed on my site. So I'm going to choose Storefront here because I've already got Storefront installed on my network. And it's been activated, so I'm going straight over to the appearance, the themes page, and I'm going to activate my existing theme. Now it did very briefly show me a button where I could continue with my existing theme, and then that disappeared. So it's important to go into your themes and do that quickly if it's important that your site maintains its existing theme. So here I can enhance my store with Jetpack and WooCommerce services. So I can do things like manage my store on the go via the WordPress app. I can automate my sales taxes, and I get all the benefits of Jetpack speed and security features. So I'll do that. I've already got Jetpack installed on my site. So I'll click yes please, and that will install the WooCommerce services plugin. So I'll just wait for that to happen. And WooCommerce is telling me I'm almost done and asking me to continue. So I need to update the database. And every time you install or update WooCommerce in the future, when it has an update, you'll find that you're prompted to update the database. And that's because WooCommerce installs a bunch of database tables on your site. Now, if you're doing this, make sure you back up your site first. And I backed up my site before I started doing this process. So I'll update the database. I'm going to go back to that screen and it's asking me to do a few things. So I can personalize the store, set up shipping, set up tax, and set up payments. I'm going to do those separately in later parts of this course. So you can see how we've got the basis of a WooCommerce store set up. We've got the plugin installed and we've done the basic configuration. In the next part of the course, we'll start working through the settings. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. In this part of the course, I'm going to give you a quick overview of all the screens that you have available to you in WooCommerce, so you can see which screens we'll be using as we move through the course. So right now we're in the WooCommerce dashboard, and you can see that here because it says WooCommerce dashboard. Now you access this by clicking on WooCommerce dashboard, as you might expect. This is the screen we finished on when we were installing WooCommerce, and it gives us this list of things we need to do to get our store ready. So what we can do is use the wizard to work through these, or alternatively we can use the settings screens. So let me just show you the screens that you've got available to you, and I'll work down this menu in order. So firstly is orders. Now this won't be populated yet because you haven't set up your store yet and you haven't got any orders. But once you get some orders, they will appear here. You'll be able to manage them, respond to them, ship items based on them, everything you need to do to work with your orders as they come in. Now, not only you as the admin get access to this screen, but also if you have a user who's a shop manager, they can access this as well. Next, we have coupons. And here you can add coupons for your users. Let me just click thanks to get rid of that notification. Go back to coupons. Right, so here you can create coupons. Now, these are things you can use to give people loyalty bonuses or discounts or money off products. And you can use those to make your customers more loyal and attract new customers to you. Coupons are slightly more advanced. They're not something you'll do when you'll be setting up your store at the beginning, but they might be a useful tool as you're managing it and working with customers. Then moving down to customers. Now, at the moment, we don't have any customers in our store because nobody's bought anything yet, but this gives you access to information about your customers. So you can find out who's bought from your store, you can get their email address, their spend, and so forth, and this helps you identify who your high-value customers are so that you can get in touch with them and promote new products to them. It also means that you can get in touch with them if there are any issues with your orders, or you want to get feedback on what you've sent them, or check up on delivery. Then we have reports. So here you get access to reporting for your store. So this will show all the orders and the sales that you've had over a given period. And again, there's nothing in here at the moment because we haven't sold anything yet. We've got settings, and we'll be going through these screens in much more detail. So the first settings screen is the general screen, and this is all about where you sell to and what currencies you use, and we'll be looking at that in the next part of the course. The settings screen is all arranged by these tabs here. So if we work along, we have the products tab. Now this isn't where you add products, but it's where you configure your products, and you set up things like how your products are measured and whether you're including reviews. You can also configure the settings for inventory and for downloadable products here. We then have the shipping screen where you can set up shipping zones. So if you're shipping to multiple locations, you can set up zones and specify what the postage will be for each of those zones. And within that, you have options and classes that you can use to work with specific types of item that you're selling and how much they're going to cost to ship. The Payments tab lets you choose the different ways that people can pay. So in most cases, you'd be using PayPal, and people can use either a PayPal account or PayPal lets them use their credit card to pay, or you might want to add another service such as Stripe, which you can do with an add-on for WooCommerce. Accounts and privacy. This is where you configure things like the My Account page and whether guest checkout is allowed. So if you want to let your customers create accounts on your site and then access order history and contact you through their account, you can set that up here. We then have the Emails tab. WooCommerce provides a whole bunch of emails that it sends out to you as the admin or store manager, and also to your customers. And you can configure these and edit them, and you can brand them to make them look much more in line with your store. We then have integrations, which is where you integrate a service called MaxMind that lets you do geolocation lookups. We're not going to be doing that. And that lets you use people's IP addresses to find out where they are so that you can calculate shipping and so forth. We're not going to be doing that in this course. We then have the Advanced tab, which to be honest isn't all that advanced. It's got things like the page setup, which is very important, the endpoints, so these are the slugs for the checkout pages that WooCommerce automatically generates. You don't need to manually create those pages, but you can create slugs for them, for the account and the payment process. And there are also sections in here which are a little bit more advanced for the REST API, webhooks, and other features which we're not going to worry about on this course, but we will come back to this page setup screen. So those are the settings screens. We've then got the status screen, and you would use this if you've got a problem with your WooCommerce installation and you get in touch with the help desk at WooCommerce. And you can get a system report and then copy that to your help ticket to give the person helping you more of an idea of what's going on. And there are other tools and logs and so forth that you can use to find out exactly what's going on in your WooCommerce installation. Now again, this is more advanced stuff for developers, so if you're setting up your store for the first time, don't worry about them. The next item on the menu is extensions, and this is where you can install add-ons for WooCommerce. So you can add things like regular subscriptions, bookings, and memberships. Now, if you're looking for add-ons for WooCommerce, the WooCommerce official store and the official add-ons are obviously one source of those, and they are robust plugins that you know will be well coded and will be 100% compatible with WooCommerce. But they are quite expensive and they might not cover exactly what you need. So it's worth taking a look at Code Canyon, because on Code Canyon there are over 1,800 WooCommerce plugins, and some of these will have functionality that isn't provided by the WooCommerce plugins, and you'll often find that they provide perhaps an element of the functionality that you need, but maybe not everything that's in the WooCommerce plugin, but for a lot less money. So it's worth taking a look because you get support with these and you know that they're backed by Code Canyon. So take a look at these plugins before you spend the money on one of the official WooCommerce plugins, because you might find what you need here. So that's the WooCommerce menu. WooCommerce also gives you a products menu, and this will be more familiar to you if you're used to working with pages and other custom post types. Now, the way products work in WooCommerce is that they are a custom post type in WordPress, but they have their own specific set of data and metadata that you can add to them. And you can see I've added a few dummy products here, which I'm going to be editing as we work through this course. So here you can add new products, you can configure your products, and you can also set up product categories and product tags, which aren't the same things as post categories and post tags, and you can also define attributes for a product. Now, an attribute is when a product comes in more than one flavour. So, for example, if you're selling t-shirts, you'll have different sizes of t-shirt, or you might have different colours. And it's much better, say, if you're selling the same t-shirt in red or blue, to set it up as one product with the two colours, rather than setting it up as two separate products, red t-shirt and blue t-shirt, because it's much easier that way for your customers to find that if they're looking at a red t-shirt and they're not quite sure about the colour, oh look, there's a blue alternative and it's shown on the same screen. And it's shown on the same product page, whereas if you set up two separate products, red t-shirt, blue t-shirt, they would be listed completely separately in WooCommerce and people might not be aware of them. So I'll show you how to work with categories, tags and attributes later in this course. So that's an overview of the WooCommerce settings screens and product screens. In the next part of the course, we'll move on to configuring our settings. And we'll start by configuring currency and taxes. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. In this part of the course, we'll carry on setting up our WooCommerce installation, and I'll show you how to configure currency and taxes. So I'm now in the general settings screen for WooCommerce, and you access that by clicking on WooCommerce Settings. And as you can see, there are a number of tabs which we looked at in the previous part of the course. So to configure currency, you use this front tab, General, and you scroll down to the currency options. So my site has defaulted to pound sterling because I'm in the UK and I've configured it to be in the UK, and it's set up my currency in the way that you'd expect it to work in pound sterling. But you can choose any currency as the currency for your store that you want. Now, WooCommerce will only operate in one currency. Although it will detect taxes, as I'll show you, depending on location, it won't change currencies. But you can override that with an add-on plugin. And I use this plugin from Code Canyon, which is called WooCommerce Currency Switcher. And what this will do is automatically switch currency depending on where your users are coming from, where they're accessing your store from. You can decide how many currencies you want to use, which currencies you want to use, and then it will automatically detect location and switch the currency. It also gives you a widget you can put in the sidebar so that if somebody's visiting your site from a location that isn't the currency that they use, so for example if they're on holiday or they're on a business trip, they can switch the currency if they want to, which also means you can switch it for testing. But I'm not going to worry about that now because we're focusing on WooCommerce out of the box. So if you need to change the currency options from what's been set up default, you do that here, and then you click on Save Changes. And then we're going to enable taxes. So if we want to enable tax rates and calculations, we click here on Enable Taxes, and then we click Save Changes. And when you do that, you'll notice that another tab appears in your settings, and that's the Tax tab. So let's click on that. Now, because I've configured my site to work with Jetpack, I can use automated taxes, and I'm using WooCommerce services to do that. So you need to hook up your WooCommerce store to your WordPress.com account using the Jetpack plugin, which will work with WooCommerce when you set it up initially, and you click on Enable Automated Taxes. And that saves you having to manually enter any tax rates. So I'm in the UK and I'm selling business to consumer. So I'm going to enter my prices inclusive of tax. Now, depending on where you are, you might enter them exclusive of tax. So if you're business to business, your customers can probably claim the tax back, so you'd enter them exclusive of tax. And also in countries where people are used to adding tax on at the checkout, you'd enter them exclusive of tax. But I'm including tax. It's going to calculate tax based on the customer shipping address. It's using the standard tax class for shipping, and you can change that if you want to reduced or zero rate. And then we can configure some additional tax classes if we want. The defaults are reduced rate and zero rate, and we then use those when we're setting up our products. I don't need to worry about that. And we're going to display prices in our store including tax, and during the cart and the checkout I'm going to include tax as well. And then I'll display tax totals as a single total, and I won't itemize them. So I'll click Save Changes. Now know that when you do that, all of this becomes unconfigurable. These become greyed out. The only way you can go back and change your settings for tax now is if you were to disable automated taxes and start all over again. Because once you've configured this, you can't change it. If you needed to manually input tax, so you weren't using those WooCommerce services, you'd go in here to the standard rates screen. And you'd need to insert a row for each of the countries that you wanted to add a tax rate for, and you'd use country codes. So if I click on this link, I've already got it open actually, I'll close that. It opens this Wikipedia page that gives you all the country codes. So you put in the country code, the state code if relevant, postcode and zip if relevant, and so forth, and then the tax rate and the name of it. If you've got multiple tax rates, you can add as many as you want. And each time you do that, you click on Insert Row, and then eventually you save your changes. Because we're using automated taxes, we don't need to do that here, which is great because this is something I used to have to spend a lot of time setting up before automated taxes were available. So that's how you configure your currency and tax settings in your WooCommerce store. In the next part of the course, I'm going to show you how to configure settings for products and shipping. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. In this part of the course, I'm going to show you how to configure settings for products and shipping. So once again, we're in the WooCommerce settings screens. So you access those via WooCommerce and then settings. And to configure settings for products, I click on the Products tab, as you might expect, and this takes me to a screen where I can configure my products. So the first thing I configure is which page is being used for my shop or my store. And I've created a page called Store. So what you need to do is create a blank page using the normal pages, add new, give that the name of store or shop or something like that, and then select that here. So I could select a whole bunch of other pages, but store is the one I'm going to use. So I'll quickly run you through what they do. So we've got add to cart behaviour. You can choose to redirect to the cart page after somebody successfully adds something to their cart. I wouldn't do that because you might want them to buy more than one thing. You probably do want to buy them to buy more than one thing. So let's keep that unchecked. We'll enable Ajax add to cart buttons on archives. So that means on our main store page or on the product category archives, there's an add to cart button. The placeholder image is one that's added by the plugin. Now you might want to change that to your logo or something like that, and that's used if there isn't an image for the product. We can change our weight units if we want. I'm using kilograms and centimetres, but if you wanted to, you could change those to use grams or to use imperial measures. We're going to either enable or disable product reviews. I'm going to disable those, and you can see having done that, everything else disappears. So I can enable product reviews but disable ratings, but if I disable reviews, I also disable ratings. So I'm going to disable those because I'd prefer people to review my books on Amazon or on Goodreads. And then I'll click on Save Changes. And there are also settings for the inventory of products. So you can enable stock management here. So you can hold stock for a certain amount of time while people have got orders in their shopping trolley, in their cart, and 60 is the default for an hour. So somebody can stay in your store for an hour before they actually check out. You can have low stock and out of stock notifications. You've got a recipient for notifications, the low stock threshold, out of stock threshold, out of stock visibility, so you can choose to hide things that are out of stock. I'm not going to do that. And if things are in, and you can also set up how stock display is done. So let's only show it when it's low in stock. So we'll save changes. And we also have settings for downloadable products. So you can choose whether a download is forced or whether it's taken to a redirect. I'm going to stick with forced downloads. You can require people to log in if you want to download. I'm not going to do that because it prevents people from downloading those products. You can grant access after payment, so somebody can access those products after they've paid but before they've maybe opened the email that they get with the link. And you could also put a unique string on the file name for security. And once you've checked that you want that everything's correct, you click on Save Changes. So that's products setup. Now we'll be doing more setup for products themselves shortly, but this is for the overall product settings. So now we've got products set up, let's take a look at shipping. So here we use the shipping tab and we can add shipping zones. So I'm going to add a shipping zone of the UK. So I add United Kingdom to it. So you select whatever zones you want to include in it. And then I add shipping methods to each of those. So there are 3 alternatives: flat rate, free shipping, or local pickup. I'm going to use flat rate. So I then can edit that flat rate and say how much it is. So I'm going to add £3 shipping for the UK. So that's my first shipping zone added. Now if I wanted to add another shipping zone, I could add Europe. problem with this is that the UK is part of Europe, whether it likes to think it or not. It is geographically part of Europe. So I would actually have to add all the different countries. So here I would go through and add France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and so on and so forth. So I would add all of those countries that are part of the European Union but not the UK, and once I've done that I add a shipping method for them. I'm going to make that flat rate and I'll edit it and I'll have a rate of £6. So I'd obviously need to go in and add more countries to this, which I can do later on. And then, so we now have 3 shipping zones. So we have the UK, Europe and other locations. So I'm going to edit the locations not covered by the other zones. So I'll add a shipping method, flat rate, edit that and make it £10. Now, I've just estimated what my shipping costs might be. And what I suggest you do is actually investigate how much it's going to cost you to send items to those places. So let's have a look at some of the other options that we've got for shipping. So you can enable the shipping calculator on the cart page, which I think is a good idea. Default customer shipping address, which is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to enable debug mode because that's something you do if you're trying to debug your shipping and see if there are any problems. So now let's take a look at shipping classes. So I can add a shipping class, and these relate to the specific sort of characteristics of things you're going to be shipping. Save shipping classes. So I then use those shipping classes when it comes to setting up products. So I'm going to save that and I'm going to add another one, which will be light. And my description is quite vague at the moment, but you might want to say specifically exactly how light or heavy that would be. And this finally WooCommerce services page just gives you access to the ability to print shipping labels. So you can print labels for your items using WooCommerce services. And that saves you having to go to the post office and pay for it or download those shipping labels from your post office. So I've set up now some shipping zones and some shipping classes. And I'll use the shipping classes when I'm setting up my products to define any extra cost for shipping those products if they're heavier. So that's how you set up your products and shipping in WooCommerce. In the next part of the course, we'll look at configuring payment methods. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. In this part of the course, we're going to have a look at payment methods and how you configure them for your store. So here we are once again in WooCommerce settings, which you access via WooCommerce settings here in your menu, and I'm going to go to the payments tab. So you can see here that we have 4 options for taking payments, and I'm only going to use PayPal. So I'll select that, and then I need to set that up. So this is the screen where we set up PayPal. So I'm going to enable PayPal standard. I'm going to keep the title and description as the defaults. I'm not going to enable the sandbox for now, but you can do that for testing. I'm not going to enable logging because that you would use for debugging. I'll enable IPN, which is instant payment notifications coming from PayPal. And I've changed my invoice prefix. The default is WC and I've changed that to RM for Rachel McLean, which is the name of the site. The shipping details will go to PayPal instead of billing details. So that means you can use PayPal to generate shipping labels if you want to. And I'm keeping everything else as the default. So I'm not worrying about any extra configurations for page styles or image URLs. And here are the API credentials. If you want to process refunds via PayPal from your site, you have to include your PayPal your PayPal API credentials. Try saying that fast. I'm not going to worry about that in my site, so I'll simply save my changes, and that's PayPal set up as my one and only payment method. Now, the way this works with PayPal Standard is that when people pay, they are taken out of your site into PayPal to pay there. Now, you might want to make things a bit more seamless by enabling PayPal within your site. And to do that, you add this extension for WooCommerce, the PayPal Checkout extension. This means that you can take payments via PayPal right inside your store, but you do need to have a business PayPal account. So that's something that's worth setting up if you want to make your store look that little bit more professional. So I'm going to stick with the defaults for now, and that's my payments set up. Now, you do have the option, if you don't want to use PayPal, to use Stripe instead. And there is a free plugin, which is an add-on for WooCommerce, that you can download from here on the WooCommerce site to add Stripe payments to your site if you're using Stripe instead of PayPal. So that's an option for you in addition to PayPal. But I'm going to stick with the defaults, and I'm using PayPal in my site. In the next part of the course, we'll move on to the final two tabs that we need to worry about, and that's Accounts and Privacy and Emails. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. In this part of the course, we're going to look at Accounts and Privacy and Emails. So once again, we're in the WooCommerce settings screens, which you access via WooCommerce Settings. And here we'll start off in the Accounts and Privacy tab. So we have some options here for how accounts are managed. And we can allow customers to place orders without an account or to log into an existing account during checkout. Now, I want to allow people to log into their account during checkout, so I'll enable that. I'll also enable placing orders without an account because I don't want to force people to create an account because it might put them off buying something. I'll allow them to create an account during checkout and also allow them to create an account on the My Account page. We can automatically generate a username based on their name, surname or email, which makes things easier. And we can choose to automatically generate a password. I'm not going to do that because I think people prefer to pick their own passwords. We can remove personal data from orders on request, because I'm going to do because I'm in Europe, so I need to think about GDPR. And we can also remove access to downloads on request. Now, I'm not actually going to do that because people have already paid for those files, so they still have access to them. I'm not going to allow personal data to be removed in bulk for now, just in case I do it by accident, but that might become necessary later on. So now we're looking at privacy. So we need a privacy page, and I've got a privacy policy on my site. So I'll add that there, I'll select that page. And then we have a privacy policy, just some text for registration and checkout. And this includes a link to the privacy policy. So you can edit that if you want to. And here we have options for retaining personal data, which I'm going to use. So inactive accounts, I'll keep those because somebody might want to sign back in. Although actually, I guess if we did something like 3 years, they're very unlikely to come back, aren't they? Pending orders, I'm going to keep for a month. Failed orders. Again, I'll keep for a month. Cancelled orders I'll keep for a year. And completed orders I'll keep indefinitely. So I'll save my changes. And that's my accounts and privacy settings. Now let's have a look at emails. So here you can see there are a number of email notifications that are set up by the system. So there's one for a new order. These are notification emails that go to the shop manager, to you. New order, cancelled order and failed order. We then have emails that go to the customer for orders that are on hold, that are being processed, that are completed, that are being refunded, an invoice and order details, a customer note, resetting their password and a new account. So let's take a look at one of these and see how you can manage it. So we're enabling this email notification for a new account, and you can see there's default text. Now the additional content at the moment is a bit dry. So I'm going to make it a little bit more. Making sure I type everything correctly. And I could add some extra information there. For example, I could add some information about the books that are being sold on the website, or links to buy them either in the store or elsewhere, such as on Amazon. And I can select the type of email it is. I'm going to use HTML. Now, there's a template file for the emails, which is in WooCommerce templates emails customer new account.php. Now, if you wanted to, you could copy that into your theme and edit it in order to override it. So you could do things like change the graphics and so forth. Now let's save our changes and then we'll take a look at this template. So this is just for viewing purposes. So this actually has got the text. So you see, thanks for creating an account. Your username is, you can access your account area. And then it'll also insert this content here. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think it's very wise to edit this because there's a lot of code in here. There's a lot of translation. And unless you know what you're doing, you could very easily mess it up. So I would leave that as it is and don't worry about overriding it in your theme. And you can then go through all of your emails and personalize the note that's added to those. So that's how you set up accounts and privacy and emails in your WooCommerce store. In the next part of the course, we'll start looking at how you add products to your store and how you configure your products for use within your WooCommerce store. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. In this part of the course, I'm going to show you how to add products to your store. And I'll show you how to add different kinds of products. So let's start by adding a new product. Now here I'm in my store and I'm in WooCommerce products. I could just click on products or on all products. And to add a new product, I could either click add new product here, or I could click the add new button up here. So all of my products are books. So my name of my product is going to be the title of the book. So that's the first book I'm adding. And for now, I'm going to make this a simple product. So it's going to be a product that I have to send to people. It's not going to be a virtual or downloadable product. So the price for this is going to be £10. It won't be taxable. It's taxable, but it's on 0 rate tax because it's a book. And so I've now I need to add my longer description here and my short description here. So I've got a blurb, which I'll add here as my long description. And then I'm going to take the opening paragraph from that and add it as my short description. So I have 2 descriptions there, the long one, and we'll see in a moment how they look on the page, and a short one as well. And I'm going to add an image. So I'll take an image from my media library, and then I publish or update. I'd already made some changes to this and published it. So you click publish. So now let's view my product. So here we have the image, which has come out the right size. We have the price, we have the short blurb, add to cart, the SKU, and then we have the description and additional information, which is the weight and dimensions. Now, to be honest, I might actually remove those because WooCommerce isn't using them to calculate shipping or anything like that, and it just gives you a little bit of information that you don't really need. So we can either go back using the back arrow in the browser, or we can click on Edit Product up here to edit it. So I'll go down to shipping and I'll remove that information there. because customers don't need to worry about that. So I'll then update my product, and now I'm going to add another product. So I click on Add New, and this time I'm going to add an external product. So I'll copy in my blurb. And that's my short description. I'm going to add a product image, which is the cover of the book. And then this one is an external product. So I'll select external or affiliate product here. And then I go into Amazon. And then I open up Amazon, and this is the product. So I'll simply copy this link. Now, if you have an affiliate account, which I do, but I don't have access to it right now, you can add an affiliate link so that you can make affiliate income from your store. So the button text by default is by product, so I'm going to put buy on Amazon. And the price, we go back to that, it's $2.99. In fact, I'm not going to add the price, because then if the price ever changes on Amazon, I have to make sure I change it in this store, and I don't want to have to keep doing that. And it's on a 0 rate of tax. So that's that product added, and let's publish that. So there's our second one. Now, actually, it doesn't look as good without the price, so let's edit that and add the price in. And update it. View the product. And there you go, we can see the price. And if you click on that, it'll take you to Amazon where you can buy it. I'll go back to my site and go back again, and now I'm going to add a third product, and this one will be a downloadable product. So I've added an external product, a physical product, and now I'm adding a downloadable product. Now this book is going to be a free download. Now I haven't actually got a blurb for it yet, so I won't add a description yet. So that's virtual and downloadable. It's still a simple product, and it's free. Now, when you're adding a downloadable product, you need to add the file. So you either add a file by uploading a file, or you can add a URL. So I'm going to add a link to my book club page, because that's where you can download the file. We can set a download limit. I'm going to put that at 2. I'm not going to make it expire, and it's not taxable. I'll add a product image over here, which again is the book cover. And then I'll publish my product. Now let's view it. So here you are, you can see my free book. I can add it to the cart here, and there isn't any text at the moment. That will obviously need to be added at some point. So that's how you add products to your store. In the next part of the course, I'll show you how to work with product attributes, tags and categories, so that you can categorize your products and create departments in your store, and also so that you can create variable products so people can buy different varieties of each product. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. We've now added some products to our store, so it's time to start organising them. And you can see I've added a whole bunch of products. I've priced some of them, but not all of them, which I'll show you why later. And I've added images for all of them as well. So the first thing I want to do is create product categories. Now, product categories are essentially the departments of your store. In a bookshop, traditionally they would be genres, so you'd have a non-fiction department, a fiction department, and then within that you might have a section for sci-fi, a section for romance, a section for thrillers, a section for new books, charts, all that sort of thing. Obviously in this case, these are just all the books of one author. And although they are in multiple genres, what's more important is the series that they're in. So the categories I'm going to use here are series. So to add categories, we go into products and then categories. Now it's important to remember these are not the same categories that are being used by your posts on your website. They are product categories, not regular categories. So I'm going to add a category for each of the series that relate to these books. So WordPress has automatically generated slugs for these. So I'm going to quick edit these. I'm going to change that one into other. I'm going to change that one to the village. In fact, I'm just going to call it village. That one I'm going to make division bell. And that one I'm going to just make Zoe Finch. So we've now got all our categories that we can use for our books. So now let's go back to the products and assign them to some categories. Now you can do this when you're actually editing or creating a book. So let's go into the editing screen for one of our products. And here we've got our categories. Now this one is in the Village trilogy. So I'll select that and then click Update. And then if I view the product, the Village trilogy. So let's go back to all of our products and use Quick Edit to do it. So we now have categories for all of those. You also have the option of using tags. And again, these are product tags, not regular tags. So I'm going to use genres here. I spelt that wrong. So I've now added all of the genres that these books come under, and some of them come under multiple genres. So now, having done that, I can then add my tags to my books. So again, I'll use Quick Edit. So I'm doing multiple books all in one go by selecting them, selecting Edit and Apply, and then adding the relevant tags. So all of my products now have categories and tags, and I can now use those categories to sort products in the store and to display them by category, which I'll show you how to do in the next part of the course. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. We've now got our products set up and we've assigned categories and tags to them. And the next thing to do is to use those categories in the way that they're displayed in the store. And to do that, we use the customizer. So if I go to Appearance and Customize, and I'll select WooCommerce, and Product Catalogue. So here's our store page. And at the moment you can see the images aren't showing up quite right because they're square thumbnails, and we'll fix that in a moment. First we're going to configure how they're going to display. So I'm going to show categories and products. So you can see that we need to add an image for this, other novels and stories, which I'll do shortly. And here we've got each of our series listed. Now alternatively we could just show the categories, and then if you clicked on that you'd see all the books. So that's another option. So in fact that's what I'm going to do. And then in the category pages, we're in a category now, you can show products, subcategories, or both. Now we don't have any subcategories, so I'm just going to show products. And then we have sorting, and we'll stick with default sorting for this. Now, how many products per row do we want? I'm going to change this to 4. And the rows per page. Oh, hang on a moment. It seems to have gone a bit weird. So there's 4. And then rows per page. We're not going to have more than 4 rows if we've got 4 books being shown across. So we can stick with that. So I'll click Publish to save that. And then I'm going to go back to some more WooCommerce settings. And I've got the product images here. Now at the moment, these are shown as square 1:1 images. So I'm going to customize that. And we can use a custom aspect ratio. That's 4:3, which is wrong. So what I want to use here is 5:8. And then we get our books laid out as you would expect. But they're a little bit narrow, so let's try 5:7. No, they're being cropped a bit, so let's stick with 5:8. There we go. So we've now got 4 of those listed next to each other. Now let's have a look at what we get if we go in a category, and there we've got 3 books next to each other with the prices and the buy on Amazon or add to cart, depending on what we've set it up as, because that one is an external product. So again, we'll publish that. I'll go back. Now here you can configure a store notice if you want. And you can also configure the checkout. I'm going to hide the company name field. I'm going to make the phone field optional. In fact, I'm going to hide it. I don't need people's phone number. Privacy policy we've got. Terms and conditions. I'm going to have that go into the privacy policy right now, but we'll need to add a terms and conditions page later on. And then the privacy policy. This is some text that we can edit if we want to. So here you can see this is the checkout page. So again, I'm going to publish that because I'm happy with that. I'll close the customizer and we're back in the products. And if I go to the store page, so now we need to add an image for this. So let's go into our category, edit that, and I'll add an image of one of the books that comes into that category. Now if we go into the store, you can see that we've got those. So that's how you configure the way that your store looks using your products and using the images in the products. In the next part of the course, I'm going to move on from product categories to something a little bit more complex, and that's product attributes and variable products. And I'll show you how you can use those to make more than one version of a product available. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. In this part of the course, I'm going to show you how to use product attributes and variable products to make more than one version of a product available. Now you can use product attributes without variable products, but I think they work best when you put the two together. So I'm going to show you how it works. Now the first thing we do is we set up attributes. Now attributes are things that are different ways of getting the product, different ways of producing the product, or different things like colours, sizes, and that sort of thing. Now in the case of books, it's format. You add an attribute in much the same way that you'd add a category or a tag. So you type it in here, the name and the slug. You can set the way they're sorted, and you can also enable archives. You can choose whether you want that attribute to have archives. And I've added format. So if I edit that, I'm going to add archives. So we can have an archive of ebooks and an archive of paperbacks and so forth. So we'll go back to our attributes. And then having set up that attribute, we can then add terms to that attribute. So I've added 2 terms so far, which is ebook and signed paperback. And then I'm just going to add paperback. Because people can either go to Amazon and buy the regular paperback, or they can buy a signed paperback direct from me on my website. So I've now got 3 terms in my format attribute. So those are all different variations on how you might buy a book. So if you were selling clothes, you might use sizes, for example. So now let's go back to our products. And I'm going to open up one of my products, Eyes of a Child, which at the moment I haven't set up as anything more than just a simple product, and I haven't added a price yet because I want to add a different price depending on which variation of the product you use. Now, if you're going to use variable products, you select it as a variable product. So it's taxable and it's 0 rated. And then we need to, before we can add variations, we add attributes to it. So I'm going to add the format attribute, and then I'm going to add all the terms. And I'm going to select use for variations. And I'll save those attributes. I'm going to update my post. Because until you update or publish your post, the attributes aren't saved. So now I'm going to set up variations. So I'm going to select create variations from all attributes, and I'll click go. It now checks that I want to do it, and I'll click OK, and then I'll wait for that to happen. Doesn't take long because it's just 3 variations. So I can now edit each of these. So I can create a price, I can select whether it's downloadable or virtual, and I can manage stock for each of those. So they effectively become individual products. And I can also upload separate images for them if I want to. So the first one I'm going to look at is signed paperback. So I'm going to click on this, and I can move them up and down. I'll cancel that. I'll click there and you can see more. And this is enabled. It's a regular physical product, and the price of this is $4.99. The shipping class, it doesn't have a shipping class. It has the same tax class as the parent. I'll click Save Changes. So that's my signed paperback version. Now let's have a look at the ebook. Now you can't actually create these, I'm going to enable it, you can't create these as external or affiliate products. So what I'll have to do instead is I will set it up as a regular product. I will make it virtual, so it's not shipped, but not downloadable because people aren't downloading it from this site. Now, I've tried doing that, and let's just do the paperback one as well. Give that a price. I'm not going to set that one up just yet. It's a virtual one. I'll save those changes and I'll update. I'll view my product, and then I can choose a format. So if I choose ebook. So at the moment I have a link to Amazon, which has worked because I added HTML, but I also have an add to cart button, and I don't want that because I don't want people buying this on my website. So let's take a look at how we can change that. Variations, ebook, and let's try unenabling it. Update that and then update the product. We'll view the product. No, it's not listed. Let's edit it again. I think another alternative might be to manage stock, enabled, and then manage stock. So we'll say we do not allow back orders and there's nothing in stock. Save those changes. and then we'll update. And now let's take a look if we view the product. Buy on Amazon. Now, that's not ideal at the moment because it's saying that it's out of stock in the store. So let's go back and have a look at the settings for our stock management. I'll go into WooCommerce settings, products, inventory. We can't change the text that's displayed. Now, it might be possible to do that with a function. So we have two options here. The first, I'm not going to do this here, but just so you know in case you want to do it, we have an option to change using a filter, WooCommerce Get Availability, and we can replace this text here, out of stock, to coming soon in this case, but we could change it to buy from Amazon on this store. Or alternatively, there is a plugin that will change that message. However, it hasn't been tested with the latest releases of WordPress, so use it with caution. It might work, it might not. So if you're comfortable coding, you could write this function in a plugin of your own, which is a better place to add it than in your theme. That would change that message. So that's how you create variable products using product attributes and product variations. So if we go back into that Eyes of a Child product, you'll see that we've got formats for it. So if I go into signed paperback, people can buy that on the site. So you can order that and add it to your cart. So that's how you set up variable products. In the next part of the course, I'll show you some WooCommerce extensions that you can get both from the WooCommerce store and from Code Canyon, and give you some ideas as to how you could extend your WooCommerce store using those extensions and plugins. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. In this part of the course, I'm going to introduce you to WooCommerce extensions, and I'm going to show you two places where you can buy plugins that will extend WooCommerce for you. So here we have the WooCommerce extension store. Now these are the official extensions created by WooCommerce themselves, and all of the extensions are listed here. There are 423 of them, so I'm not about to list all of them for you, but you can see if we go back up here the categories, the types of extension you can get. So we've got payments, shipping, marketing, subscriptions, enhancements, store management and themes. So we've seen some of those premium themes earlier on when we were installing WooCommerce using that wizard, and you can see here you can buy themes to go with WooCommerce that give you a bit more functionality than the free themes that you can get on the WordPress theme directory. So let's take a quick look at each of these. So here you can see there are different options for payments, so you can set up subscriptions, pre-orders, and you can have payments happening off-site or on-site, and you can also include in-person payments so that people have to pay in person. These extensions will help you prevent fraud. They're not to commit fraud, they'd help you prevent it on your store. So there are just a couple of them here, anti-fraud extensions. Let's take a look at the subscriptions extensions, because there are actually 42 of those. So some of these are more general extensions around payments, so PayPal and Stripe and so forth, and those are all payment extensions, but you might use them for subscriptions as well. You've got gifting for WooCommerce subscriptions, paid courses, a number of different payment gateways. So these are general payment gateways, but you can also, let me see if I can find, in fact, actually, if we go back to the main extension store, WooCommerce subscriptions is listed here. So that's one that you might use if you want to set up products or services that people subscribe to rather than buying as a one-off. And WooCommerce will manage that whole process for you. It will take the payments automatically for you, and you can link it up with membership levels on your site as well. So let's go back and have a look at some of the other more popular ones. WooCommerce bookings. This is a really common one. For example, if you run a site for a hotel or a restaurant or a hairdresser's or anything like that where you need to take bookings, you can integrate bookings with the WooCommerce plugin. Now, there are bookings plugins available on the WordPress plugin directory, and some of those are free, but what you'll find if you use this is you can integrate sales of products with sales of appointments. So that might be worth considering. And these are all aimed at people running decent scale professional stores, because obviously they're quite expensive plugins. But if you're making money from your WooCommerce store, they can be well worth investing in. Another source of plugins for WooCommerce is Code Canyon, and in Code Canyon there are hundreds, in fact almost a couple of thousand WooCommerce plugins. So the number here is much too great for me to go through in detail, but let's take a look at some of the best sellers and the rising stars. We've got one for Amazon affiliates, which would be useful if you want to link your WooCommerce store to your affiliate account on Amazon if you're running that. You've got product options here, dynamic pricing and discounts, multi-currency. I use one called Currency Switcher, which is similar, that also comes from Code Canyon, that I already talked about. We've got online food ordering. You can set yourself up as an alternative to Just Eat. And we've got delivery details, WhatsApp. People can use WhatsApp to pay for things on your store, and so forth. So whatever you need to do with WooCommerce, you will find something in here. One of the beauties of the Code Canyon directory of WooCommerce plugins is that because there are so many, and there are often more than one that will do a similar thing, but they'll be very slightly different. So you'll be able to find something that does exactly what it is you need. And sometimes you might find that you have a very specific need where you don't need to buy one of those big expensive WooCommerce extensions from the official WooCommerce store, because you don't need all of the features of one of their plugins. But there might be a plugin here on Code Canyon that does the specific thing that you need and is also cheaper. So if you're looking to make your WooCommerce store go a bit further, or you need to add extra features, these are the two places that you can take a look. The other place, of course, is the official WordPress plugin directory. So as well as WooCommerce itself, you'll find a whole bunch of free WooCommerce plugins here. Some of these are official WooCommerce plugins, like this Stripe plugin. And then you've got plugins like the MailChimp plugin. You've got Germanize to use it in Germany. We've got PDF invoices and packing slips. So before you start paying for an add-on, it's worth taking a look here and seeing if you can find exactly what you need for free. Now, generally, you'll find that the free plugins aren't as feature-rich, or maybe aren't as user-friendly as the paid ones. But it might be that if you want something that's not too big, you'll find it here in the free plugins directory. And you can always try it out, and if it doesn't work for you, you can go and have a look in Code Canyon or on the WooCommerce website. So those are some of the extensions that you can get to make your WooCommerce store more feature-rich. In the next part of the course, I'm going to use one of these extensions to add an extra feature to my store, and that's personalization of products. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. We've now set up our store and added some products to it. But now I want to add some extra functionality. Because one of the things that I'll be selling is signed copies of books, I want to add a field where people can request an inscription. So when I sign the book, I can also write something to them. Now, WooCommerce doesn't allow for that out of the box, so I'm going to need to install an add-on. And I'm going to install this WooCommerce Product Add-ons plugin from Code Canyon. So this gives you access to a whole bunch of different add-ons for products, including text fields. But it also lets you add more variable aspects of your products. It lets you add images for those. It lets you add checkboxes, radio buttons, all sorts of things. But what I'm after is those text boxes. So I'm going to buy this plugin, I'm going to download it, and then I'm going to upload it to my site. And then we'll start adding those custom fields. So I'm now back on my site, and I'm going to upload and install that plugin. So I'll go to Plugins, Add New, and then I'm going to upload the zip file that I downloaded from the Code Canyon website. So there's the zip file. I'll open that. I'll install it. And again, because I'm working in a multi-site network, I'm having to install this in my multi-site installation, and then I'll go back to this site and I'll activate the plugin there. If you're using a standard site, you would install it and activate it in the same place. So here it is, WooCommerce product add-ons. I'll activate that. So now I can create product add-ons via this product add-on menu. So I click on Add New to add a new rule. I'm going to give it a name, dedication, and the price of the option will go with the product price, but it's going to be free, and I will enable it. Now, if I wanted to, I could just apply that to specific products or specific categories, but I don't want to. I want to apply it to all the products in my store. So I will click Add New Option, and then I get to select what type of option it is. So I want a text area. I don't want it to be required. And there's no conditional logic. The price is 0. And I'm going to make it ultra clear. And then I'll save the rule. So let's take a look at the applied to, and I'm going to add it to all the categories. So that's quicker than adding it to all the products. So now let's take a look back at this product and refresh. So if you want to buy that, you have to add the dedication here. And then here we have the dedication. So now let's view the cart. And here it says what that dedication is. And we've got the cost of the book, the shipping at flat rate, which we've already calculated, and then we can go to the checkout and make that purchase. So now when I receive that order, I will get a note as the shop owner of what that person has asked for as the dedication in the book. So I can then sign it before I send it out, and I can write what they want me to in it. So that's how you add the WooCommerce product add-ons plugin to your store and use it to create additional fields for use in the checkout process. In the next part of the course, we're going to wrap up by summarising what you've learned as you've worked through this course. See you next time, and thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to this Tuts Plus course on getting started with WooCommerce. In this part of the course, I'll wrap up and show you what we've done as we've gone through the course. So I started by showing you some examples of WooCommerce stores. So I showed you some of these examples of some very bespoke designs of WooCommerce stores. We then looked at installing the WooCommerce plugin, and we did it right within the interface in the admin screens in WordPress. So the website that we started with was an author website, and the existing shop page just had a form, and people used that to order a book, but it was far from ideal. So we added the WooCommerce plugin. So we started by installing WooCommerce and activating it, and then we went through the wizard to get it set up. I then showed you a bunch of the settings that you have available to you in WooCommerce, and we worked through them to get our store set up. And once we'd got the settings in place, we then looked at adding some products. So we added a range of products, some of which were variable, and each of those products was also added to a product category. So in this case, because they're all books by the same author, the product categories I used are series. Now this product is a variable product, so we use product attributes to create a format attribute. So we have paperback, ebook and signed paperback, and then we added a variation for each of these, which, if I scroll down a bit, you can add a price for and make some of those virtual and some of those physical. So once we had our store page, we used the product categories as a way of displaying products on that main store page. So each of these leads to a series by the author. And for each product, you can then buy that in whichever variation you want to, or you can click through to a link on Amazon to buy it. And finally, we use the WooCommerce product add-ons plugin, which you can find on CodeCanyon, to add a text area to each product. And this means that if people want to buy signed paperbacks, they can add a dedication here, which will go through to the order and then can be added to the book before it's sent out. So that's how you set up WooCommerce and use it to add a store to your existing website. I hope you found this course useful. Thanks for watching.